I think Kirkland's going to be the shocker tonight. Here to take a closer look at some of the West Island results and how it'll all play out with the city's new mayor. Our municipal affairs reporter Tim Sargent join us, and our City Hall analyst Karim Boulos. Hi, Tim.
Good evening, Jamie. Absolutely. Let's just pick up on that point. I'm in Pointe Claire, as you know, but talking about Kirkland for a moment, that is an absolute shocker. Michelle Gibson winning that election race for mayor of Kirkland, defeating the long-time serving mayor John Meany. No one really expected this, except, of course, probably the supporters of Gibson, because don't forget, he'd been on council, as you mentioned, for about 21 years alongside with Meany. They've been working together on so many different local issues, and now for him to come along and run on change, and Meany was accusing him of running on change when they actually worked together for so many years, and people voted for him. A lot of people are quite surprised. I'm sure Mr. Meany's very, very shocked. So this is the really big story playing out here in the West Island. That's a very big upset indeed in Kirkland. Meanwhile, here, as you mentioned, Maurice Trudeau looks like he has won. There's only about 8 boxes left to count, but he's got a lead of more than 438 votes. Bill McMurtry, the current and outgoing mayor, is in this room now. He's congratulated Mr. Trudeau on his victory. We'll be speaking to him a little bit later on to get his feel and take on all this. There is only one council seat, the district of Valois, which is really coming down to a two-way race. There's only 2 votes that split the 2 candidates, the incumbent and against one of the challengers running for a seat here. So that's a close race still to watch. But all in all, it sounds like the big news, for now anyways, is in Kirkland.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tim, I want to bring Karim Boulos in on this because Karim has been watching the race in St. Anne de Bellevue pretty closely, and that was a really, I was reading some of the stuff on that. A kind of a nasty campaign it turned into, didn't it? It
got a little bit personal. I think it was really 2 camps going head-to-head on every issue. You know, I think Mr. Paul Chablot had the support of some of the former members of council who are not running again, trying to put together a platform of change and public security and a role on the Association of Suburban Mayors, kind of playing that whole diplomacy type angle, whereas Paula Hawa was really running a campaign of, we're going to get things done, we got to stand up for St. Anne de Bellevue, we got to look at all the issues like zoning that have to be addressed, and so very, very forceful in her views, and so is he. So it came right down to the wire in today's election.
Tim, you know, you said Kirkland's going to be this big story out there in the West Island, but I know Beaconsfield, I mean, we're going to talk to Alicia about it a little bit later, but in Beaconsfield, George Burrell, who has never run for council before, he was endorsed by the outgoing mayor, but that is also a big story, the race in Beaconsfield tonight.
Yeah, that's been a 4-way race, and one of the big issues was the development of Angel Parks, that enormous green space of land, because there is a housing project in order to build a whole bunch of condos there. Some of the councillors had been in favor of developing some of that green space for a housing project. The outgoing mayor was actually against that. That was a major issue there. So yeah, that's you know, that's another story to keep a close eye on.
And we're going to, I mean, we don't have results yet from Centerville, but this was similar to the Angel Woods debate. Tim, you did a story on this for us. Was a debate over development in Centerville. It was George McLeish, the incumbent, who was pushing for development, up against Jane Guest, who wanted to save the town. We don't have results yet, Tim, but what do you think, or what is your prediction about what we'll see in Centerville? Can you predict it?
Well, that's very tough to predict. You know, it's always difficult, as you know, to defeat an incumbent. Although we just see it happen in Kirkland. However, this is a race which is really becoming a one-issue race that is really dominating all again about a green space piece of land, and the person running against George McLeish, Jane Guest, wants to guarantee that this parcel of land remains green space, does not get developed. McLeish is saying there should be some development, a limited amount of development, and then there's going to be a referendum, a second ballot, where people are going to have to vote whether or not they're in favor of changing the urban plan for Centerville, and that would then allow for either a development project or for the status quo, basically this green space of land to stay as is. So that's something that we'll have to look and see what the results are going to be there. Jamie?
No shortage of issues out on the West Island, but one that is common to all of those demerged suburbs will be dealing with a new mayor, Denis Coderre. How do you think that will play out? He has said he'll be nice, right?
Well, he said he's going to be nice, and I think it's in his best interest to be nice. But the reality still remains the balance of power. You know, representing 13% of the population, but paying 20% of the taxes. So as long as Montreal and the demerged suburbs, for that matter, only have municipal taxes as their sole or majority of their revenue, it's always going to be a tenuous situation and tenuous relationship between those boroughs and, those
cities and
demerged
towns,
cities
yeah.
and towns, thank you, and the City of Montreal. I think there needs to be a more equitable sharing of power and responsibility. The suburbs are paying too much for what they're getting. That's the bottom line.
All right. Thank you very much, Karim. Thank you, Tim Sargent, out in Pointe Claire.